Welcome to the CLI-ALPMA Innovation and Legaltech Week 2021 on-demand program. This session is focusing on sustaining legal transformation. Is it possible? My name's Alison Laird, and I've been working in the legal industry for the last decade, helping lawyers deliver legal services in more innovative and client-centric ways. And to find out if it is possible, and more importantly, perhaps how to do it, I'm joined by three experienced transformation experts. We've got Caroline Ferguson, Jan Hards, and Tila Hoffman. Caroline is the Business Transformation Innovation Director at Simpson Grierson. She's passionate about creating environments that allow law firms to explore and implement new ways of working that deliver positive change for people and their clients. Jan is the Director of Legal Innovation at Johnson Winter Slattery, where he's responsible for assessing the firm's use of new tools, primarily technology related, and changes in work practices aimed at enhancing the quality and efficiency of the firm's legal practice. He acts as a much needed bridge between clients, practitioners and the IT team, and champions integration of legal technology, training and innovative change for the benefit of staff and clients. And last but definitely not least, Tila is a Special Counsel and Business Transformation Manager at MinterEllisonRuddWatts. She's got a passion for transforming how legal services are delivered and has a keen interest in offering innovative digital solutions that are delivered to the benefit to both internal and external clients. Tila is responsible for the firm's increased use of automated technology document assembly, resulting in rapid preparation of consistent and tailored legal documents, and is regularly asked to speak about legal technology and projects and the implementation of change process. Welcome all. I guess to kick us all off, 2020 was perhaps one of the more challenging years, and 2021 does seem to be suffering its prolonged hangover. So looking back, Caroline, what do you think was the most significant shift that you saw around the delivery of legal services over the last 12 months?
Well, I think there's the really obvious one that we proved that remote working can work for the delivery of legal services. So I think that's one thing that we can't deny. There's also the incredible uptake of video conferencing, not just for when you critically need it, but for actually day-to-day everything, as we all experienced, especially in those lockdowns. But I guess for me, the other area that I saw a big change was we all shifted to absolutely what is critical when it comes to legal services. So not that we're ever doing things just for the sake of it, but I think it really made us and our clients hone in on what do we really need to be doing right now, what needs to be prioritized, and putting energy there, given there was so much else happening for everyone, particularly dealing with working in a completely different way pretty much overnight and balancing life and work even more so than we ever have before.
Yeah, I think that leads to quite a lot of similar experiences and many of the challenges that people had to overcome. So Jan, what was your biggest challenge in 2020 and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, thank you, Alison. And I fear I'm going to be a little bit repetitive here, but yes, our biggest challenge was really to the way that we deliver legal services. We delivered legal services since the pandemic began, really, how we communicated with our clients, how we communicated with other stakeholders, other bodies involved in the delivery of legal services, crucially the courts. And lastly, how we delivered them, how we communicated among ourselves within our firm and among our colleagues. And yes, it was a very big year for video conferencing and assisting my colleagues in, many of my colleagues were used to video conferencing. They would go to a meeting room and it would all be set up for them, or they were used to it, contacting their family. But to actually go from that environment, pre-March last year to an environment where many of them were given, had to deal with 4 or 5 different video conferencing platforms, while at the same time working from home, was a real challenge. But as I'm sure we'll see in this conversation, it's brought many great changes to the way we work.
So speaking of those sort of changes, then I wonder, Tila, what was the most unexpected outcome, or what successes were you able to celebrate as a result of the changes that happened over the last year?
I'd have to say it wasn't unexpected from certainly some of my colleagues' perspective, but it was certainly a success we all celebrated. And it was because of the investment that we had made in our systems and tools over the previous couple of years that we effortlessly transitioned to that remote working. We were very fortunate that we could do that. And so literally overnight, we were able to switch the way we worked because, first of all, they were forced to it, but we also already had everything in place. So from anywhere on any device with security measures already in place, we didn't miss a beat. And we really celebrated that. We were quite proud of that.
And I think that's absolutely something to celebrate. I think it's been an experience of a number of law firms and professional services being able to shift and pivot as quickly as it did. I think it surprised some people how quickly we all readapted into a new way of working.
Yep.
So on that, I think maybe Jan, was your digital transformation experience different pre-COVID and compared to now along those lines?
Yes, it certainly was. Pre-COVID, it was, if I might sum it up, digital transformation and innovation more generally was more of a nice to have thing, or if there was a particular thing that was needed by a particular client, then people were invested in it. What happened with the pandemic was people had to change to continue doing their jobs. They had to change and needed to embrace new ways of working. So I think we saw that the need to change and use new technologies, and there was just no way not to literally embrace them, and that was the major difference that I found. Yeah.
Mm. And Tila, was your experience similar then, that COVID has fast-tracked that digitization and transformation of legal service delivery?
Yeah, I think COVID brought the importance of change top of mind, and the need to deal with change top of mind. So all of a sudden, we had to adapt to new ways of working together, new ways of working with tech, new ways of delivering to clients, and I think lots of people were surprised by their own adaptability, which is pretty cool. And more importantly, our people started to think about how to do things differently. So it's not just driven by certain people. I like to think that more people across the organization are starting to think of how to do things differently.
So maybe a question for all of you, maybe on the back of that, starting with you, Tila, what happens now in terms of what or who do you believe will actually be driving and sustaining the transformation once we potentially have a vaccine and we don't have a pandemic on our heels and we don't have the COVID excuse? How are we going to sustain legal transformation?
I think it comes down to people. People who are passionate and relentless. Those people will continue with the work and will continue to find ways to add value because it's part of their being, our being. We don't know any other way to be. So regardless of whether there's a pandemic or not, I think certain people will continue. And there will be those people in every organization, and you find them and you tap into them and they'll continue to drive it.
So yeah. Caroline, sorry, go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I agree, and I think some of the changes we've seen during this long period of remote working, greater exposure to these new technologies, certainly encouraged and in certain cases cause lawyers in my organization to see new possibilities of what they can do with the technology that is now on offer, and are starting to drive change themselves to become champions. For example, people started using Microsoft Teams simply for video conferencing, but they noticed many of the other applications that you can use with Microsoft Teams leading into legal project management, and now I have colleagues pushing for more of that. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
So Caroline,
I agree with what both of you have said. I think one of the biggest shifts that I really like to see that I think will help continue with the transformation and change within organizations is the level of self-sufficiency that happened last year. To Jan's point that we used to turn up and wait for someone else to set up our meeting, we're now used to doing that all ourselves. And I think that's driven a little bit of confidence that we are capable all of doing it. And so we can each be kind of the champions and the ambassadors for this, rather than just relying on those who kind of have it formally in their job title. And again, to Tila and Jan's point, it's not organisations that change, it's people. So the sustaining of this will come down to people, and I completely agree. It's going to be the people with the enthusiasm and the adaptive mindset and kind of the bravery to keep this going, which is what's going to be absolutely critical, that we kind of harness the benefits of what we've learned so far.
So how do you engage then the hearts and minds to adopt that change? And, because you're sort of saying that obviously the human elements of transformation, that empathy, that user-centric design, making sure that we're developing solutions and tools that are actually useful for people and help them and add value. How do we engage the hearts and minds to adopt that change?
I kind of came across 3 great words last year, which I've kind of kept stuck in my mind. So the first one is being relevant. So a change has to be relevant for that individual or that team. And I certainly find within my firm, all of our teams and departments have different needs and different ways of doing things. So creating change with them has to be adapted to them. So being relevant is really important. The next one is all about connection. So actually thinking about what that change and how that will impact other workflows or other things that you do, because it's quite easy to do something that works well in one area but could negatively impact how something else works. So being connected and seeing that big picture. And then the last one is being responsive. So if something is not working, learn from it and change it, rather than kind of lumping people with something that doesn't quite meet their needs and just gets them frustrated, and then they'll be less likely to want to engage with future change initiatives. So for me, it's those 3: relevant, connected, and responsive.
So Tila or Jan, do you have anything to add in terms of that human side and areas that you think are going to stay as a result of what we've been through in the last 12 months?
Well, just to expand on what Caroline was saying, I'd say forbearance to encourage change. We all work in organizations which have been incredibly successful over decades or however long. These are highly driven people. They're very efficient. It's a very competitive environment, and change is difficult for many. And so I think using Caroline's 3 terms is a very useful way to encourage it. And then for me, it's trying to find a balance between encouraging those who come up with new ideas and want to find and want to develop new ways of doing things on the one hand, but then on the other hand, so that's the bottom-up approach. But on the other hand, someone like me in my organization, sort of applying a more central, top-down approach, whereby I suggest things to certain colleagues, or I champion certain ways of doing things. So it's creating that balance within an organization, which in some states, is already very successful, and there might be some resistance to change. Yep.
And Tila, do you have any fears of, all of the good that's happened as a result of, potentially COVID driving some of the transformation, almost the forbearance, as you say, Jan, to encourage that change? Is there anything in danger of disappearing, or how do we stop things going back to the way they always used to be done?
New Zealand's in a bit of a unique position because we've been kind of BAU for quite some time, for most of the year, frankly. So in some ways, we've shifted already. So I can tell you we've maintained a desire to continue to use our collaboration tools, to continue to have our Kanbans, to continue to be innovative. One of our firm values is Waka Horia, bring on the future. And so in my personal opinion, what there is a danger of is firms not going back to pre-COVID. Firms that continue to transform will grow. I think there's great opportunities for organizations to grow if they continue to transform. And if they don't, there may be some organizations that become obsolete. So I just think if we keep that same momentum, which we have been able to do in New Zealand, even though we haven't been in lockdown as much.
If I can add to that, and I agree with that. And we have probably had a longer duration of lockdown in certain of our offices here in Australia, but many of our colleagues are back in the office, and I'm already starting to see people sort of going back to older ways of doing things, which in some cases I find a little bit regrettable. So I'll take video conferencing as an example. Yesterday I was in one location and I did a call with some colleagues, and they'd all got together with in a meeting room, which was great for them because obviously they could all see each other, but the audio wasn't as good as we're now used to because everyone's set up and their audio and of course visually we can see each other. And so they were joking amongst one another, and I was kind of like off on the side trying to hear, not really included, and I thought, well, that I can understand why you want to do that, but then we have this great technology to bring in people from many different places together, and maybe we should revisit that. So yeah, there's going to be some challenges going ahead. We've got to the next level with the technology, but how do we, now that we're all increasingly going back into the office, how are we going to take the advances we've made and bed them into maybe a new normal, or a way of working that we were used to before the pandemic.
So on that then, looking forward, I guess as those regional lockdown restrictions begin to ease, now is probably the time for legal service to look towards how do we thrive in a post-crisis sort of world. So Caroline, where do you think legal transformation can play a role in that?
Well, I think transformation is all about doing something different, and to do something different, you have to have the mindset to be curious and to be open to do something different. So I think certainly for me, one of my biggest priorities is just really continuing to harness that self-sufficiency, but also a curiosity with that, so that we as a team can support people to continue to try things in a different way and work in a different way, and not let that regression happen too quickly, because I agree, I'm certainly seeing it around certain things like digital signing. Once everyone was back in the office and clients were back in the office and wanted to come in and sign things, they would do that rather than still doing it in a digital way. So for me, I think transformation can help with keeping that self-sufficiency going, supporting people to be curious, supporting people to try things in a different way, and keep that momentum up, because it is really easy to just go back to old ways of working, and there will need to be people supporting and continue to drive that change.
And so you sort of mentioned then about the digital signatures and electronic document execution, which have sort of become the norm at the moment. Maybe, Jan, you might want to have a chat about what the challenges and risks are that lie ahead for the legal profession in, I know that there's some processes in the works to maybe get that to become more business as usual, but what's your experience been, and how has it changed the way that the lawyers have worked?
Yeah, so I'm a recovering corporate M&A lawyer, and for many years we hoped in Australia that there would be law reform to allow electronic execution of documents by corporations, and the pandemic caused that to happen, albeit as part of the emergency regulations, and we certainly hope that those will become permanent. And so now, as in a commercial law firm where many of our clients are corporations and documents are being signed by corporations, having the ability to collect signatures using platforms such as DocuSign or Adobe Sign have significant efficiency gains associated with them. Matters can be concluded or settled in a much quicker and easier fashion than the old days, where everyone would come to a particular office, or more commonly in recent years, people would be sort of scanning signature pages and emailing them around. So tremendous opportunities, but as with anything, moving to a new type of technology, it does bring its risks. People not being fully familiar with how that technology works, people using DocuSign and documents going live before they should go live, and other issues around it. But I suppose the biggest challenge with it is still many lawyers and clients are reluctant. I've seen cases where people are looking for ways. No, do we really have to use that? I could just take a photograph of it with my phone, and shouldn't that be enough? So there's more work to be done with it, but certainly the corporate lawyers who've used these technologies now, they are very reluctant to go back to the old way of doing things.
Yeah, and I think we sort of say that, precedents may guide lawyers, but innovation is ideally what drives business. So, it'd be interesting to see what each of you think in terms of those opportunities ahead. So, what role will data and digitization play? Will the legal profession maybe finally adopt a more collaborative and inclusive culture? Do we need to acquire more skills that augment the transformation of legal services? So from operations, business analysts, legal project management, data analytics, change managers. Tila, what's your opinion on is the future bright, and how's it going to change?
I think that's a tough one. I would like to think we'll continue to look for ways to collaborate and continue to look at ways to be more inclusive. I'm not sure we're quite at the point of respecting skills that augment delivery of legal services in the same way we respect the technical legal services. But to be fair, it's in its infancy. And so the more we deliver, the more we can establish how we can deliver in better ways that are not just better for our clients, but also for our people, and get them home earlier and have less stress and less admin, the more likely we will have those other non-traditional roles.
Caroline, what's your experience then, and your hope for the future in terms of, more than just the black letter law advice?
I'm cautiously optimistic because I think there have been some really great signs. So I hope that continues. I think one area which definitely has now the potential for a bit more of a boost and a bit of a re-energize is definitely the legal project management area. Last year from our clients, a lot of them, some of those who were more impacted by COVID, really had to kind of reduce spend. They had reduced budgets, whatever they were sending to legal providers. They really needed that to be managed as best as possible. There needed to be great transparency, very good kind of scoping and estimating at the beginning and tracking that, which as we know, just lends itself completely to legal project management being a key part of how you work. So, and then on the flip side of that, law firms, if clients aren't sending as much work to them, they also need to be thinking about profitability and revenue, and legal project management is, of course, a great way of doing that from their end as well. So I see benefits for both the client side and the legal service provider side, but I really hope that some more momentum happens in that space. I know other jurisdictions, we've obviously had kind of teams of legal project managers appear and be built into firms. We haven't, I guess because of our size, we haven't had that in New Zealand firms yet, but I think we will see more of those roles emerging, possibly not this year, but definitely over the next couple of years. So that's one area that I think that we will see some change.
And Jan, what about the importance of data analytics and data analysts coming in to help with transformation agendas?
Yes, I think there's so much we can do in this area. Law firms generate or receive vast amounts of data, much of it semi-structured. Much of it is accessible, but in those huge spreadsheets, and it includes a lot of extremely valuable information, not only for our own practices and the risk profile of the law firm itself, but also for the services it provides its clients. and on the marketing side to try and win new work. I definitely see an opportunity as part of the growth of the legal operations function within private practice law firms to become better at getting hold of that data, analyzing it, presenting it in a digestible form to relevant decision makers or to lawyers to pass on to their clients, but also to provoke, if I might use the word provoke. I think if you send somebody a pie diagram or a bar chart, I think that's one step, but put a few observations below it, what you think that the data in that diagram represents, and challenge the person receiving it. And so I think there's definitely a role for technologists and certainly data analysts within law firms, and I think that role would naturally fit within a legal operations function. And we're starting to make strides in that direction and surface this data in ways in which our colleagues just found too difficult to get hold of in the past. So I see it's a very exciting thing going forwards. Yes.
Yeah, and I certainly think data is going to be play an increasingly important role in how we turn those raw numbers or that raw data or unstructured data into management intelligence that then enables us to deliver better insights to our clients and help our staff, lawyers, and professional services be able to deliver in different ways and become better, faster, and cheaper, which is part of that sort of transformation aspect. In terms of staff, I wonder, if we're thinking about the future operating models, and there's been a lot of noise around that, a whole lot of people really enjoyed working from home. How will that actually impact on helping to drive transformation agendas if they don't come back to work 5 days a week? What's the impact on not only maybe training junior lawyers or working with clients or the footprint of the office, but how will that also impact on the transformation agendas and getting change to happen?
I mean, I can start with this. I think the fact that people have worked from home, and many people like working from home at least part of the week, is probably going to be one of the biggest impacts of COVID, long after, COVID has hopefully receded into history. And many firms are talking about, allowing, many firms talk the talk before COVID, but increasingly you see firms saying, people can work two out of 5 days a week from home. And that's going to have, as you've already mentioned, Alison, significant implications in a variety of different areas. Certainly on the office footprint, but the one I'll focus on is development of junior lawyers. What does that look like when more senior lawyers to whom in the past they worked together in physical proximity, that is no longer happening to such a great extent. And I'll just say, working from home has been particularly popular with more senior lawyers with families, and surprisingly, that they do enjoy working out of the office. But there's a big challenge to be had with developing our junior lawyers, getting them experience, and we will definitely have to change the way we work or the way they work to develop our colleagues, where there isn't so much proximity as there was before.
Tila, have you noticed anything in terms of, given that there's been sort of slightly less lockdown in your office environment, and has there been any changes in terms of how people are wanting to work and how that's going to impact your transformation journey?
Yes, I mean, we understand and appreciate the need for flex, and so post COVID, we put a flex policy in place with some really good uptake. We have a future of work committee that's considering all types of solutions, including these. I mean, obviously, we want to attract and keep the absolute best talent, and so this is definitely top of mind for us. We're doing a little bit more training that perhaps is on platforms where they can, because that generation also likes to do a little bit of DIY, learn anytime, anywhere, on any device, hop on, listen to a podcast, things like that. So we're trying to do a little bit more of that, so people can choose the type of training that they will have, and it doesn't replace any of the face-to-face or in-person or online collaboration tools at all, but it's the introduction that saves a little bit more time and angst. But will be interesting to see because we do have quite a bit of flex. And it will be something we have to continually look at, I think, with our summer clerks, our law clerks, and our solicitors in terms of training. Absolutely.
So, Caroline, it's sort of interesting listening to some of those responses. So I wonder, in sort of 25 words or less, in a two-part question, what's your top transformation priority for 2021, and how do you plan to ensure it's sustainable and, as you sort of have said, relevant and connected and responsive?
I think one big thing that, as kind of a director group, that we're focused on is that whole connectedness and taking a holistic view to change within our organisation. And it's quite easy to end up with finance delivering a solution and IT do something, and then business transformation do something else. And all being aware of what one another is doing, but not actually connecting the dots with our extra value could be created if we did it more synced up. So I think for us, that's a real big focus, is that connectedness, not going out to people with too many things, going together with one thing, with a clear narrative of the benefits and engagement, so that we just can help people without any fatigue, given so much has already happened. So that kind of ecosystem approach is really important, and it does link into that whole data point as well, because I think all legal organisations, we've got great technology, but at the moment it's not all integrated and it's not all connected. So that is something that could make a huge difference to our end users and our clients. So it's definitely a part of that more ecosystem lens, which is a focus for us.
And Jan, what about your team? What's your top transformation priority for 2021?
More legal operations within my organisation, expanding that role to bridge that. I'll say it's a gap between lawyers and technology. And as Caroline said, there's a lot of great technology. We have what I like to call a legal operations toolkit, but you need somebody in between the lawyers and the pure technologists to say, you can use this bit of this toolkit to deliver this service to this client, or here, let me build it for you. Let me show you what it can do. What do you think? Have you shown it to the client? Yes, it's great. Oh, do you want to do it some more? And can we show the people down the corridor if they're there, and slowly build up legal innovation and technology in that way. So that's what I'm focused on in the next 12 months.
Yeah, and I think that role of the translator between the business and the solutions, and vice versa, is actually really important in the business, and it helps to sell the story and the why behind it as well, and also provide the feedback back to even the technology, if that's the solution that's being developed, what the users need and want. So what about Tila, any top transformation priorities for you?
It's interesting because I would put both what Caroline and Jan said at the top of my list as well. But I guess I would add to that a good quote: work is not a place, it is what we do.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like to see personally is a shift to outcomes. And that's quite different in a law firm, which is so time-based. So that's my current thinking in terms of how do we get to that. And that's part of the future of work, committee work that we're looking at, because I do think that could be a really transformational shift for law firms.
Definitely.
And exciting. And the young ones our young lawyers want to do it based on outcomes, not butts in seats.
And the bottom line as well is that the clients are not buying the number of hours that a lawyer delivers, they're buying the solution or the outcome to their problem. And so I think that mindset shift and transformation is going to become increasingly prevalent in the business, because our clients already know it. And it's up to now the law firms and legal service providers to deliver that. So I'm conscious that our time is coming up. So in conclusion, I wonder if you have any advice for any people embarking on, or if they're in the middle of their own legal transformation, what would you tell them going forward? Tila, do you want to start with you?
Sure. I tell them to start somewhere, anywhere. Identify something that causes you angst, something you see repeated, and think about what to do about it, how to do it differently. You don't need to invest funds or have a major change project to make incremental differences. And so start small and you'll get some uptake and it'll grow.
Jan, any advice?
Yes. So, I mean, I've already made my point about forbearance, but so I won't repeat that. But I think when you're in a role a lot like those that we're in, you know, there are people who come knocking at your door asking for help, and those are such great opportunities, and take them and run with them. And you don't necessarily have to do what that person is asking you to do, but there's definitely other things you can do for them, or improvements or innovations you could help them implement. So I really do you know, try and grasp with both hands those opportunities that come my way. So I guess what I'm saying, instead of trying to sort of mandate certain things across an entire organization, see what the organization's saying to you, make it a two-way conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's a better way potentially of getting buy-in. You know, if you're actually delivering
Indeed.
and helping the people and delivering what they ask for, they're more likely to come on that journey with you. So Caroline, any advice then for people embarking on their transformation journey?
Both what Tila and Jan have said really resonates. To Tila's point about just start, and it doesn't have to be massive. I read the quote once that the first step of change is a conversation. So even just have conversations around better ways of doing things is making progress. And then my other piece of advice, given I've kind of been in transformation innovation roles in law firms for 10 years now, is that these can be really challenging roles, and they can be really energy sapping. And it can also be like a roller coaster, where one minute you feel like you're making great progress, and then the next minute you feel like you're slightly stuck in mud. So my other piece of advice is there's an amazing network of people in similar roles out there. College of Law and ALPMA and the Centre of Legal Innovation do a great job at kind of facilitating that. So my piece of advice is reach out to people, jump on LinkedIn, ask questions, find people that can kind of be your tribe to help you keep going when it can be a little bit difficult. But it's definitely worth it, and we're all on the right track. We've just got to keep going.
And I think building on that, I guess maybe my bit of advice would be very similar to that, is that, you know, just because something goes wrong doesn't mean that you're not on the right track, and it's that resilience, and having that resilience and ability to pivot and change and do something differently the next time is all part of it. So to finish up then, in one word, sustaining legal transformation, is it possible? Tila?
Yes.
Caroline?
Yes, definitely.
Jan?
Absolutely.
Well, there you have it. Our experts have unanimously agreed that sustaining legal transformation is indeed possible. I guess if you have the ability to stay relevant, connected and responsive, and have the right approach with the right engagement and addressing the right issues, that it is sustainable. We hope you enjoyed this session. If you would like to receive updates about the work of CLI and ALPMA, please be sure to follow them on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. Thanks everyone, and all the best of luck on your very own legal transformation journeys.